When she stepped off that dusty wagon, no one imagined that this quiet young woman would transform not just a man, but an entire ranch. Because sometimes the greatest miracles don't come from the world's noise, but from the silence of those who've learned to listen with their hearts. Subscribe to the channel for heartwarming stories every day. The road dust rose in ochre clouds, drawing whirlwinds that dissolved in the afternoon air. The sun dipped towards the west, painting the wooden fences and arid fields surrounding Restful Valley Ranch in shades of orange. Tomas held his hat between his hands, his fingers gripping the worn brim as if all his hesitation resided there. He didn't want to be here. He didn't want to buy anyone. The word itself made him sick, but the loneliness had weighed like a stone in his chest since he buried Clara 6 months prior. The big house, which once smelled of fresh bread and rosemary, now just collected dust. His clothes had poorly done patches. The garden was withering. He'd wake up and not know why he was getting out of bed. "You need someone to help, boss," the foreman had insisted. "Can't let it go like this. The missus wouldn't want it." That's why he'd agreed, for her. The wagon appeared around the bend, pulled by 2 tired horses. The driver, a man with a dirty mustache and an uninterested gaze, stopped by the gate and lumbered down. Without ceremony, he went to the back and tugged out a small figure, swathed in light brown rags. Tomas took a step forward, his heart tightening. It was a young woman, perhaps 20, perhaps less, hard to tell beneath the dirt and her vacant stare. Her brown hair was tangled, pulled into a messy bun. She didn't look at anyone. She just kept her hands clasped in her lap, fingers intertwined as if praying without words. "Here she is," the man grunted, spitting on the ground. "Deaf and mute. Not good for anything but carrying stuff, and not even that, she does poorly. The last owner said she was dead weight." "I agree. But you said you needed someone. So here she is." It wasn't anger, it was shame. Shame for being part of this, for allowing a human life to be treated like livestock being traded. "Does she have a name?" he asked, his voice coming out drier than he intended. The man shrugged. "If she does, nobody knows it. Doesn't talk, doesn't answer, just eats and sleeps. Sometimes stares at nothing. Brown, deep, filled with a sadness so ancient it seemed carved into her soul. But they weren't empty. There was something there, a spark." He extended his hand, open, without haste. She watched him, suspicious. Then, very slowly, she placed her hand in his. It was cold, small, trembling. "Welcome," Thomas said, knowing she couldn't hear. But he said it anyway because words needed to be spoken. "You're safe here." The wagon's dust swirled around the gate, and when it settled, only the 2 of them remained. A broken widower and a voiceless young woman, bound by a silent promise neither yet understood. Tomas slowly released her hand and pointed towards the house. She followed, her bare feet marking the red earth. He noticed she walked with care, like someone testing the ground before each step, like someone who had learned not to trust. Inside the house, a fire still burned in the wood stove. Tomas pointed to a chair and made a gesture to sit. She obeyed, stiff, hands still in her lap. He served pumpkin soup in an earthenware bowl, placed bread and butter beside it. Then he moved away and sat on the other side of the table. She looked at the food, then at him, then at the food again. Then, very slowly, she picked up the spoon and ate. Tears streamed silently down her dirty face. Tomas looked away. He knew what those tears were. They weren't of sadness. They were of disbelief, as if the world had stopped making sense for an instant because someone had offered kindness without demanding anything in return. He didn't say anything else that night. He just showed her to a small room in the back with a simple bed, clean sheets, and a window overlooking the orchard. He left a lit lamp and closed the door. Outside, he leaned against the wall and took a deep breath. He didn't know what he was doing. He didn't know if he was doing the right thing. But when he'd seen those eyes that only asked to be seen, He knew he couldn't have done otherwise. Night fell over Restful Valley. The wind blew through the trees, and somewhere in the distance a dog howled. Inside the house, two lonely hearts began unknowingly to learn a new language. The language of healing silence. The first few days were a period of mutual observation, like two wild animals recognizing territory. She would wake before the sun, wash her face in a basin of cold water, and stand by the door, gazing out at the yard. Tomas would see her from afar as he milked the cows or mended a broken fence. He noticed she followed the movement of birds, the dance of leaves, the sway of clothes on the line. She read the world through her eyes. On the second day, Tomas left a small piece of paper on the kitchen table with a drawing, a sun, a steaming cup, and a loaf of bread. She looked at it, frowning. Then he pointed to the hot coffee in the kettle, to the fresh bread on the cutting board. She blinked and understood. The next morning, when he entered the kitchen, another paper was on the table. She had drawn a flower. Simple, disproportionate, but unmistakably a flower. Tomas smiled for the first time in months. She was at the window, her back to him, looking at the orchard. When he held up the paper and waved, she turned. And then she did something he didn't expect. She smiled back. It was a small, shy smile, like someone who had forgotten how to do it and was relearning. But it was enough to light up the entire kitchen. From then on, drawings became their language. Tomas would draw a bucket and a broom. She understood it meant to clean. She would draw an egg. He would bring eggs from the coop. It was crude, imperfect, but it worked. And gradually, the distance between them began to shrink. One afternoon, Tomas found her crouched near the abandoned garden. She held a handful of earth in her hands, smelling it, feeling its texture between her fingers. He approached slowly and knelt beside her. Then he took a tomato seed from a small bag in his pocket and placed it in her palm. She looked at the seed, then at him. Tomas made the gesture of planting, digging with his fingers, placing the seed, covering it with soil. She nodded, and together they began to prepare the garden bed. They didn't speak, they didn't need to. Their hands in the earth said everything. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, the garden beds lay overturned, ready for new life. Tomas wiped his hands on his apron and stood up, offering his hand to help her. She took it, and this time, she didn't pull away immediately. They stood there, in the middle of the yard, hands clasped, as the golden afternoon enveloped the world. Tomas was the first to let go, a little embarrassed, but something inside him warmed. That night, he left a different drawing on the table, a house with a lit window, and beside it, he wrote in big, clear letters, "Home." The next morning, she was in the kitchen when he woke up. Coffee was ready, bread on the table, and on his drawing she had sketched two figures, one larger, one smaller, holding hands. Tomas sat down heavily in his chair. He covered his face with his hands, and he cried. He cried for the wife he had lost. He cried for the young woman someone had discarded. He cried because, for the first time in months, he didn't feel completely alone. When he lifted his face, she was standing there in the doorway. She looked at him with that old sadness in her eyes, but now there was something more, compassion, recognition, as if she were saying, "I know what it's like to hurt like this." She didn't move closer. She didn't touch him. But she tilted her head slightly, a gentle gesture of understanding. And it was enough. The following days brought an unexpected routine. She cleaned the house, not because she was ordered to, but because she seemed to find solace in tidying things. She folded sheets with precision, lined up plates on the shelf, and swept the floor until it gleamed. Tomas fixed what was broken, chairs, windows, his own soul, and slowly, the resting valley farm began to breathe again. But something changed when she found Clara's box. It was on top of the closet, forgotten. Inside there were fabric scraps, colorful threads, and a sewing needle. Tomas entered the room and saw her holding a piece of blue fabric up to the light. She looked at him, expecting disapproval, but he just nodded. "It's yours now." She didn't hear the words, but she saw the gesture, and she understood. That night, by lamplight, she began to sew. She didn't know what yet, but she felt her hands needed to create something, perhaps to remind herself that she still existed. Tomas watched her from the doorway in silence, and he thought that perhaps he too was sewing something inside himself, something he thought was lost forever: hope. The news spread through the village like wildfire. Widower Tomas brought a young woman to the farm. They say she's deaf and mute, but she's living there, alone with him. What a scandal! The women whispered at the market. The men exchanged glances at the general store. The priest, Father Angelo, a man with white hair and trembling hands, heard the comments and frowned. He had known Tomas for years. He knew he was an upright man. But appearances mattered. And the appearances weren't good. It was on a Saturday morning that the first stone was thrown, not literally but with words. Tomas was at the store buying flour when Donna Maura, the village seamstress, approached with a disapproving frown. "Tomas, we need to talk." He turned, weary. "Good morning, Donna Maura." "I don't know if it's so good," she retorted, crossing her arms. "Everyone is talking about the young woman you brought here. It's not decent for an unmarried man to live under the same roof as a woman with no kin. Clara, God rest her soul, would be ashamed." Tomas felt anger rise like bile. "You don't speak for Clara. And the young woman has her own room. There's nothing indecent about it. But people talk, Tomas, and people's talk stains. You should marry her or send her away." Tomas clenched his fists. "She's not cattle for me to send away. And I won't marry just to satisfy gossip." Donna Maura huffed and walked away, muttering something about lack of respect. Tomas paid for the flour and left, his chest tight with indignation. When he got home, he found the young woman sitting on the porch steps, sewing the blue fabric. She looked up and saw his grim face. She tilted her head, concerned. Tomas took a deep breath and sat down beside her. He picked up a stick and drew in the dirt, a house, 2 figures, and around them several other figures pointing with angry faces. She looked at the drawing, then at him. She understood. She always understood. Then she did something unexpected. She placed her hand over the drawing, erasing the angry figures with her palm. She left only the house and the 2 figures. Then she pointed to her own chest, and then to his, and drew a protective circle around them. Tomas swallowed hard. It was so simple, so true. "What matters is what's in here." He nodded. "You're right." She didn't hear, but she saw the weight lift from his shoulders, and that was enough. But the judgment didn't stop. The following week, Father Angelo appeared at the farm. He was a kind man, but bound by the rules of his time. He sat at the table with Tomas and spoke gently, but firmly. "My son, I understand your compassion, but the situation is delicate. The people are talking, and I, as their shepherd, must look after everyone's reputation." "Father, I'm not doing anything wrong." "I know, but appearances matter. I suggest you find a family who can take her in or marry her." Tomas interrupted, his voice dry. Father Angelo sighed. "That would be a solution. She doesn't need a paper husband, Father. She needs peace, and that's what I'm giving her." The priest was silent for a long moment. Then he stood up. "May God guide you, Tomas. But be careful. The world's judgment is cruel." When the priest left, Tomas stood on the porch, and it was then he felt it, a faint vibration in the ground. He turned and saw her, standing in the doorway, looking at him. She hadn't heard the conversation, but she had sensed the tension. Tomas approached and gently took her shoulders. He looked into her brown eyes and spoke slowly, articulating his words clearly so she could read his lips. something he was beginning to suspect she could do. "You are safe here." She read it, and for the first time the tears that fell were not of pain, they were of gratitude. That night, she finished sewing the blue fabric. It was a quilt, simple but strong. She spread it on the bed and smiled. It was the first thing she had made just for herself in years, and as she slept under the blue quilt, she didn't know that soon she would be called upon to prove that her silence was not weakness. It was power. The days began to take on their own rhythm. Tomas would wake to the rooster's crow, finding coffee ready and fresh bread waiting. She would wake to the pre-dawn chill, wash her face with cold well water, and begin the day's tasks. Not because she was forced to, but because she had found solace in routine. Gradually, the farm transformed. The garden, once a patch of dry weeds, now boasted green rows of lettuce, tomatoes, and kale. The chickens were fed at the right time. The laundry hung on the clothesline, clean and fresh-smelling. And Thomas, who had lived for months in a fog of grief, felt alive. But the real transformation happened on a hot afternoon, when the ranch foreman, Jed, appeared in the yard, his face red with frustration. "Boss, the steers are spooked again. I can't get them into the pen. It's impossible." Sure enough, the 3 steers, Muro, Trovão, and Canella, were snorting, kicking up dust, and refusing to go in. Jed was yelling, waving his hat, but it only made things worse. "Let me try," Thomas said, grabbing his lariat. Not to rope, but to crack in the air and guide the animals. But they didn't obey. Muro, the biggest, turned and charged, his eyes wide with fear. Thomas backed away, his heart pounding, and then he saw her. She was there, standing by the fence, watching. Before he could say anything, she leaped over the fence with surprising agility and entered the corral. Jed shouted, "Ma'am, get out of there, it's dangerous!" Muro lowered his head, snorting more softly. Trovão and Canella moved closer, nuzzling her hands. She stroked Muro's muzzle, her eyes fixed on his. And then, with a simple gesture, she pointed to the entrance of the pen. The 3 steers followed her like lambs. Thomas stood frozen. Jed took off his hat, mouth agape. What was that? How had she calmed animals that he, an experienced rancher, couldn't control? She walked out of the corral, wiping her hands on her dress, and looked at Thomas. There was a faint smile on her lips, not of pride, but of simplicity, as if she was saying, "It's not hard. You just have to listen to what they feel." That night, Thomas couldn't sleep. He sat on the porch, gazing at the stars, trying to process what he had seen. She wasn't deaf in the way he had imagined. She heard, but in a different way. She felt vibrations, read expressions, perceived the world on a frequency others ignored. She was, Thomas realized, more attuned than anyone he had ever known. The next day, Jed spread the story throughout the ranch. "That girl's got a gift, I swear, never seen anything like it." The other workers, previously wary, began to watch her with curiosity, and little by little, they started to try to communicate with her. It was young Lucas, the stable hand, who tried first. He approached her while carrying hay and waved. She stopped and waved back. He pointed to the hay, then to the stable, and made a gesture as if asking if she could help. She nodded yes. They worked side by side in silence, but it was a silence filled with understanding. Lucas discovered that if he spoke slowly, articulating clearly, she understood. And if he made clear gestures, she responded precisely. That evening, Lucas told the others, "She's not mute, she just speaks differently." He was falling in love, not with her body, not with the beauty that time and abandonment had tried to erase, but with her soul, with her silent strength, with the way she looked at the world, with compassion, with patience, with a wisdom he had never found in words. And that scared him, because Clara was still fresh in his memory, because the grief still hurt, because he didn't know if he had the right to feel this. But the heart, he would discover, doesn't ask permission. It had been raining for 3 days straight. The red earth had turned into thick mud, and the house roof dripped in 2 corners. Thomas had placed buckets underneath, but the sound of water hitting metal echoed through the house like a mournful drum. On the 3rd night, Thomas woke with a start. Something was wrong. He got up, lit the lantern, and walked to the kitchen. Everything was in order. Then he heard, or rather felt, a dull thud coming from her room. He ran there and knocked on the door. "Are you okay?" "You're safe." He picked up the blue blanket she had sewn, the one that had been on the bed, and wrapped her in it carefully, as if he were wrapping something precious. Then he sat beside her, leaning his back against the wall, and stayed there, just present, just steady. Little by little, she began to feel his presence, the warmth of the blanket, the solidity of his body beside her, his slow, steady breathing. She turned her face slowly and saw him, Thomas, with his hair messy, his pajamas crumpled, looking at her with a concern so genuine it hurt. A sob escaped her. It had no sound, but Thomas saw her body tremble. And then, for the first time, she moved closer. She rested her head on his shoulder and closed her eyes. Thomas remained motionless. His heart pounded so hard, he feared she might feel it. But he didn't move. He didn't speak. He just stayed. And gradually, her trembling subsided. Her breathing calmed. The fear receded. They stayed like that until dawn. When the grey morning light filtered through the window, she had fallen asleep, still wrapped in the blue blanket, her head on his shoulder. Thomas, exhausted, also closed his eyes. It was Jed who found them. He knocked on the front door, and when no one answered, he entered. He saw the buckets full of water, the silent house. And then, curious, he went to her room. The door was ajar. And there they were, sitting on the floor, she wrapped in the blanket, he with his arm around her, both sleeping soundly. Jed smiled and closed the door softly. "Good," he murmured to himself. "Looks like the boss found what he was needing." But she turned, looked at him, and made a simple gesture. She placed her hand over her heart and inclined her head. "Thank you." Tomas swallowed hard. He nodded, and he knew in that moment that something between them had changed forever. In the afternoon, when the rain finally stopped, he found her in the orchard, looking at the wet trees. He approached slowly and stood beside her. She took his hand, not shyly, but firmly. And they stood there in silence as the world dried around them. But the peace wouldn't last long, because that same afternoon, a wagon appeared at the gate. And from it descended a man in a dark suit, a tight tie, and the look of someone come to collect a debt. It was her former employer, and he had come to take her back. The man's name was Mr. Alcides Borges. He owned land 3 miles down the road, known for paying little and demanding much. He had a broad forehead, small eyes, and a mustache that drooped over thin lips. He stepped down from the wagon with the arrogance of someone who had never heard the word no. "Tomas Ferreira?" he called, rapping his cane on the ground. Tomas came out from the porch, his jaw tight. "That's me. What do you want?" "I've come to collect what's mine." Alcides spat on the ground. "The girl, she belongs to me. She was legally acquired, and the man who sold her didn't have authorization." Tomas felt his blood run cold. "She doesn't belong to anyone." "She does. I have the papers." Alcides pulled a yellowed envelope from his pocket. "She was handed over to me due to family debt. I tried to use her, but she was no good for anything, so I sold her to get rid of the problem. But now I find out you're using her for work, and that's profit that belongs to me. She's not a slave." "Nobody is," Alcides laughed, a dry, cruel sound. "Not a slave, no, but she's useless and stupid, deaf, mute, doesn't respond to orders. But if you've managed to get something out of her, then the profit is mine. She's coming back with me." It was then that Tomas saw her. She was standing in the doorway, her face pale, her eyes wide with horror. She recognized the man, and the fear in her was palpable. Alcides saw her and smiled. "Ah, there you are. Come on, don't make me waste my time." She recoiled, her hands trembling. Tomas stepped forward, placing himself between them. "She's not going anywhere. You have no choice. The law is on my side. The law may be on your side, but decency isn't." Tomas crossed his arms. "She stays here. If you want to take her, you'll have to go through me." Alcides narrowed his eyes. "Be careful, Ferreira. You're challenging a man with influence. I can make your life very difficult." "Then do it." "But she's not leaving here." There was a tense silence. Alcides looked at Tomas, then at the girl, then back at Tomas. Then he smiled, a cold, calculated smile. "Very well, I'll fetch the sheriff, and when I return you'll hand her over or you'll be arrested for theft." He turned and climbed back onto the wagon. "You have 3 days." The wagon rattled away, kicking up dust. Tomas stood frozen, his heart hammering. Then he felt it, a small hand holding his. He turned. She was there, her eyes full of tears, but holding on tight. He squeezed her hand. "I won't let him take you." She read his lips and nodded, but there was fear, so much fear. That night, Tomas couldn't eat. He sat on the porch, smoking his pipe, thinking. Old man Justino came and sat beside him. "Boss, everyone on the farm is talking. Nobody wants the girl to leave. She's part of this place now." "I know, but I don't know how to stop Alcides. If he has the papers, then get other papers." Old man Justino looked at him. "Marry her, for real, then she's your wife, and no old papers will be worth more than a marriage certificate." Tomas looked at the old foreman. "I won't force her to marry me just to protect her. She deserves to choose." "Then ask her." Tomas took a deep breath. He stood up and went into the house. She was in the kitchen, washing dishes, her movements mechanical, her mind clearly elsewhere. He touched her shoulder gently. She turned. Tomas grabbed paper and pencil. He drew 2 stick figures, one of him, one of her. Then he drew a church. And then, carefully, he wrote, "Marry?" She looked at the paper, then at him. And then she did something that surprised him. She shook her head. "No." Tomas felt his chest tighten. She didn't want to. But then she picked up the pencil and wrote, her hand trembling but legible. "Not out of fear, if out of love." Tomas read it and reread it and understood. She didn't want to marry out of obligation. She wanted it to be real if it happened. He cupped her face in his hands, looked into her brown eyes, and spoke slowly with all his heart. "I love you." She read it, and tears fell. Then for the first time she opened her mouth. Her voice came out weak, raspy, full of disuse. But it came out, "I love you too." Tomas pulled her into an embrace. And there, in the simple kitchen under the lamplight, 2 broken hearts began to fuse into one. But the battle was yet to come. The 3 days passed like a tense lightning strike. Tomas barely slept, planning every move, every word he would say when Alcides returned. He sought out Father Angelo first thing the next morning, entering the rectory with his hat in his hands. "Father, I need your help." The priest looked up from his breviary. "I imagined you would come." "Sit down, my son." Tomas told him everything, about Alcides, about the fake papers, about the fear he saw in Miriam's eyes every time she looked out the window, expecting the wagon to return. The priest listened in silence, his fingers interlaced on the worn wooden table. "And what do you intend to do?" he asked finally. "Marry her. For real. If she's my wife legally, no old papers will have any value." Father Angelo sighed, taking off his glasses and slowly cleaning the lenses. "Tomas, are you sure you're not doing this just for protection? Marriage is a sacred sacrament. It can't just be a strategy." "It's not just a strategy, Father." Tomas swallowed hard, the words coming out more difficult than he expected. I love her. I didn't plan it. I didn't expect it. But it happened. And I can't imagine my life without her." The priest put his glasses back on and studied Tomas's face for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. "If she consents, I can perform the ceremony tomorrow morning, but I need to speak with her. I need to be sure she understands what she's doing." She understands. She always understands. That afternoon, Father Angelo drove out to the farm. He sat with Miriam on the porch, under the warm, late afternoon sun. Tomas stayed inside the house, giving them privacy, his heart hammering in his chest. The priest spoke slowly, articulating each word clearly. He used paper and pencil when necessary. He drew a church, 2 rings, a union, and then he asked directly, "Do you want to marry him because you love him or because you are afraid?" Miriam picked up the pencil. Her hand trembled, but her writing came out firm. "I love him, afraid too, but love more." The priest read it and smiled, a sad and beautiful smile at the same time. "God bless you, my daughter." When Tomas saw the priest leave, he read the answer on his face before he even spoke. "Tomorrow at noon, bring witnesses." That night, Miriam sewed by lamplight. She took the blue blanket she had made months ago and cut a piece from it, transforming it into a simple veil. It wasn't elegant, it wasn't fine, but it was hers, and that was enough. Tomas watched her from the doorway, his heart tight with emotion. "You don't have to do this." She looked up and made a simple gesture. She placed her hand over his heart, then over hers. "Us, together." He nodded. "Together." The next morning dawned clear and cold. Tomas put on the suit he had worn to Clara's funeral, but this time, as he buttoned his vest, he felt no weight. He felt a new beginning. Miriam wore a simple dress that Donna Mora, regretting her past judgments, had hastily sewn when she learned of the ceremony. It was white, with long sleeves and a round neck. The blue veil was pinned into Miriam's dark hair with a wooden comb that had belonged to Tomas's mother. Seu Justino and Lucas would be the witnesses. The 2 men were nervous, straightening their clean shirts, slicking their hair down with water. "Boss," said Seu Justino, placing a hand on Tomas's shoulder before they left, "we're so happy for you. The girl, Mrs. Miriam, she's good people." "The best." Tomas squeezed the old foreman's hand. "I know." The small village chapel had never seemed so large and quiet. Father Angelo waited at the altar, dressed in simple vestments. A few people were in the pews, curious, well-meaning, and others who came only to witness the scandal, but Tomas saw no one but her. Miriam entered through the door, barefoot. She had refused to wear shoes that hurt, walking slowly down the narrow aisle. The blue veil swayed gently, her brown eyes fixed on his. When she reached the altar, Tomas extended his hand. She took it, and together they turned to the priest. The ceremony was short. Father Angelo adapted the questions, allowing Miriam to nod instead of speaking. When it was time for the vows, Tomas spoke slowly, each word heavy with truth. "I, Tomas Ferreira, take you to be my wife. I promise to love you, respect you, and protect you. Not because the law demands it, but because my heart knows no other way." Miriam took a deep breath, and then, her voice weak but determined, she replied, "I, Miriam, take you. I promise to love, always." There was a silence in the chapel, some eyes filled with tears, because everyone there understood this wasn't a show, it was real. When the priest said, "You may kiss the bride," Tomas simply touched his forehead to hers, his eyes closed, their hands clasped. It was a gesture more intimate than any kiss could be. They left the chapel as husband and wife under the midday sun, and it was at that very moment they saw him. Alcides Borges stood at the farm gate, accompanied by the sheriff. They were waiting for them. Tomas felt Miriam squeeze his hand tightly. He squeezed back. "It's okay. I've got this." They dismounted. Tomas helped Miriam, holding her carefully by the waist. She still wore the white dress and the blue veil. Tomas still wore the suit, and together they walked toward Alcides. "It's time, Ferreira," Alcides said, his voice full of false patience. "Hand over the girl. Don't make me use force." Tomas calmly took a folded paper from his inner coat pocket. "This here is a marriage certificate registered this morning at St. Sebastian's Church. Miriam is no longer anyone's property. She is my wife." Alcides snatched the paper from Tomas's hand and read it, his face turning red as embers. "This is a fraud. You married her just to cheat me. There's no cheating when you marry someone who consents freely. Ask the sheriff." The sheriff, a fat, sweaty man, took the paper from Alcides' hand, read it carefully, and sighed. "He's right, Mr. Borges. If she's his wife, legally registered, no debt or old contract holds up, she's a married woman, she has rights." Alcides crumpled the paper and threw it on the ground. "This isn't over. I'll take this to the judge. I'll prove you manipulated her. Do as you please." Tomas took a step forward, his voice low but firm as rock. "But in the meantime, she stays here, in her home, with her husband. And if you come back here without a court order, you'll be carried out. Now get off my property." There was a moment of tension. Alcides breathed heavily, his fists clenched. The sheriff placed a hand on his shoulder. "Come on, Mr. Borges. There's nothing more to do here." Alcides spat on the ground, cursed under his breath, and climbed onto the wagon violently. The sheriff followed him, visibly uncomfortable with the situation, and they drove off, kicking up dust and anger. When the wagon disappeared around the bend in the road, Seu Justino, who had watched everything from a distance, let out a cry of victory. "Hooray!" The other workers who had been hiding behind the barn and the house came out, applauding. Lucas whistled. Even Donna Mara, who had come to see the ceremony, clapped discreetly. Miriam looked around, her eyes wide with surprise. Then she smiled, a wide, luminous smile, full of life. Tomas pulled her close, enveloping her in a tight embrace. "It's over. It's truly over." She nodded, her head resting against his chest, and she whispered, so low only he could hear, "Free." That night, the entire farm celebrated. Seu Justino brought homemade wine. The women from the village brought food. There was music, Lucas played the guitar, and everyone sang, while Miriam watched, feeling the vibrations of the music through the wooden floor, her eyes closed, smiling. When night fell and everyone had gone home, Tomas and Miriam were left alone on the porch, sitting side by side, looking at the stars. "Are you happy?" Tomas asked, knowing she could read his lips even in the dim light. She nodded. Then she took his hand and placed it over her chest, where her heart beat strong and steady. He understood. "I'm alive. For the first time, I'm alive." And there, under the vast country sky, two wounded hearts finally found peace. Together. The following weeks brought a new routine, not the routine of survival, but the routine of building. Miriam was no longer the nameless girl who had arrived as a burden. She was Miriam Ferreira, wife, homemaker, and, little by little, teacher. It all began with the children. Seu Justino's daughter, a 7-year-old named Teresa, would come to the farm bringing eggs. One afternoon, she saw Miriam conversing with Tomas, using gestures, and was fascinated. "Why do you do that with your hands?" she asked, curious. Miriam smiled and knelt down to the girl's level. She made the gesture for hello, an open hand waving. Teresa imitated her, laughing. Then Miriam taught her, "Thank you, yes, no." In half an hour, Teresa knew a dozen gestures. When the girl returned home, she told her friends. The next day, 3 children showed up at the ranch. The following week, there were 10. Miriam, patient and kind, taught them all. And little by little, the entire village began to learn the language of silence. The adults changed too. Mr. Justin, who used to yell orders all the time, started using gestures. The oxen, which used to be spooked by the shouting, now obeyed the calm movements of hands. The ranch became quieter, but paradoxically, more communicative. Tomas watched it all with astonishment and pride. One afternoon, while Miriam was teaching a group of children under the shade of the ipi tree, he stood on the porch, just watching. Mr. Justin approached. "She's special, boss. Very special." "I know. You truly love her, don't you?" Tomas turned to the old foreman. "More than I ever thought possible." Mr. Justin smiled. "Then you're a lucky man." But with happiness came vulnerability, because when you love, you open yourself up to the fear of loss. One morning, Miriam woke up feeling strange, dizziness, nausea, a weariness that wouldn't pass. Tomas noticed she barely touched her food, that she sat down frequently, hand on her belly. "Are you okay?" he asked, concerned. She nodded yes, but he didn't believe her. He insisted they go to the village to see Donna Beatriz, the most experienced midwife in the region. Donna Beatriz was a black woman with white hair, firm hands, and a gaze that saw beyond the body. She examined Miriam in silence, palpating, listening, observing. Then she smiled, a wide, warm smile. "Congratulations, my dear. You're going to be a mother." Miriam's eyes widened. She looked at Tomas, then at Donna Beatriz, then back at Tomas. And then she began to cry, tears of shock, of fear, of joy. Tomas knelt in front of her, holding her hands between his. "We're going to have a baby." She nodded, sobbing. Then, with a trembling voice, she said, "Baby." Tomas laughed and cried at the same time. He pulled her into a tight hug, burying his face in her shoulder. A baby. Our baby. When they returned to the ranch, the news spread like wildfire. Mr. Justin hugged Tomas so hard he almost knocked him over. Lucas cheered. The women of the village started knitting blankets and tiny clothes, but Miriam, despite the joy, felt fear. Fear of not being a good mother, fear of not being able to hear the baby cry, fear of failing. One night, as she lay beside Tomas, she touched his shoulder. When he turned, she wrote on a piece of paper, "What if I can't hear the baby?" Tomas read it and pulled her close. "You will feel. You always feel everything. And I'll be here. Always." She rested her head on his chest, listening, not with her ears, but with her body, to the strong, steady beat of his heart. And she believed. The months passed. Miriam's belly grew. Tomas built a wooden crib, carving flowers into the sides. Miriam sewed sheets and blankets using the leftover blue fabric from her veil, the house filled with preparations, with hope, with love. But the outside world hadn't forgotten them. Alcides Borges, furious about his defeat, spread lies throughout the county. He said Miriam was crazy, dangerous, that she had bewitched Tomas. He said the baby wasn't Tomas's, but some workers. He said the ranch was a den of immorality. The lies reached the ears of the county judge, a man named Dr. Severino, known for his strict morals. He sent a letter to Tomas. An inspector would visit the ranch to assess the conditions of morality and health. When Tomas read the letter, his blood ran cold. Miriam, 7 months pregnant, saw his expression and knew something was wrong. "What is it?" she asked, her voice weak but insistent. Tomas showed her the letter. She read it, her lips moving slowly, and paled. "Are they going to take the baby?" she whispered, her hand protectively over her belly. "No." Tomas held her face firmly. "They won't take anything. I won't let them." But inside he was afraid, because he knew inspectors had power, and that sometimes power was used unjustly. The visit was scheduled for 3 days from now, and Tomas knew this would be the most important battle of their lives. The inspector arrived on a gray morning, announced by heavy clouds threatening rain. His name was Dr. Augusto Mendez, a thin man with thick glasses, a trimmed mustache, and a leather notebook always in hand. He stepped down from the carriage with precise movements, his eyes examining every detail of the ranch. Tomas waited at the gate, hat in hand, posture erect. Miriam was inside the house, hand on her belly, heart racing. "Mr. Ferreira," Dr. Mendez greeted, without extending his hand. "I am Dr. Augusto Mendez, sent by Judge Dr. Severino to assess the conditions of this property and the marriage established here." "Welcome," Tomas said, his voice controlled. "The ranch is at your disposal for inspection." Dr. Mendez nodded and began to walk around the yard, taking notes. He observed the organized barn, the lush garden, the well-cared-for animals. He interviewed Mr. Justin, who answered honestly, "Mrs. Miriam is the best thing that's happened to this ranch. Hardworking, kind, and the boss truly loves her." Then it was Lucas's turn. "She taught me to speak with my hands. Now I can communicate with my brother, who also doesn't hear well. She's a blessing." Dr. Mendez took notes, his face impassive. Then he asked to meet Miriam. Tomas's stomach tightened. "She's pregnant. She shouldn't be unnecessarily disturbed. Precisely why I need to see her. I need to assess if she is in adequate condition." Tomas led the inspector to the house. Miriam was sitting in the rocking chair Tomas had made for her, sewing a small blanket. When she saw the strange man, she tensed. Dr. Mendez approached, speaking slowly. "Mrs. Ferreira, my name is Dr. Augusto Mendez. I'm here to ask a few questions." Miriam looked at Tomas. He nodded encouragingly. She turned back to the inspector and nodded that she understood. "Did you marry Mr. Ferreira of your own free will?" Miriam nodded yes. "Does he treat you well?" Another nod. Then she picked up paper and pencil and wrote, "He is good. I love him." Dr. Mendez read it and made a note. "You are pregnant. Do you feel prepared to be a mother?" Miriam hesitated. Then she wrote, "I am afraid, but I will try. He will help." Dr. Mendez studied her for a long moment. Then he did something unexpected. He took off his glasses and cleaned them slowly. "Mrs. Ferreira, there are those who say you are incapable, that you are mad, that your husband manipulates you." Miriam paled, but she didn't look away. She picked up the pencil and wrote in large letters, "Lies. I chose to stay." Dr. Mendez read it. Then he looked at Tomas, then back at Miriam, and he put his glasses back on. "I will need to spend more time here. I'll be observing for 2 days." The next 2 days were tense. Dr. Mendez was always around, watching, taking notes. He saw Miriam cooking, cleaning, tending to the garden. He saw Tomas helping her put on her shoes when she couldn't bend over because of her belly. He saw the two of them sitting on the porch at dusk, hands clasped, in comfortable silence. On the second day, something happened that changed everything. One of the horses, the most skittish one, escaped the stable and bolted towards the broken fence. If it went through, it would fall down the embankment. Lucas and old man Justin ran after it, shouting, but the horse was panicked. Miriam, who was near the orchard, felt the vibration of its hooves on the ground. She turned and saw the horse. Without hesitation, she walked to the middle of its path, raised her hands, and began making gestures. Slow, rhythmic, calming. Dr. Mendez watched from the porch, frozen. The horse slowed down. It snorted. It shook its head. Then it stopped, a few feet from Miriam. She approached slowly, stroked its muzzle, whispering soundless words. And then, gently, she took the reins and led it back to the stable. When she returned, Dr. Mendez was standing, his notebook forgotten in his hand. "How did you do that?" he asked, his voice full of astonishment. Miriam pointed to her eyes, then to her heart, and made the simple gesture of listening, not with her ears, but with her soul. Dr. Mendez swallowed hard, and for the first time, he smiled. "I understand." On the third day, Dr. Mendez gathered everyone on the porch of the house. Tomas and Miriam stood side by side, their hands clasped so tightly their knuckles turned white. Dr. Mendez opened his notebook and read, his voice formal but not cold. "I came here to investigate serious accusations against Mr. Tomas Ferreira and Mrs. Miriam Ferreira. Accusations of manipulation, mental incapacity, and immorality." He paused. What I found was the opposite. Tomas let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Dr. Mendez continued, I found a prosperous and well-managed farm. I found workers who respect and admire their employers. And I found a woman who, far from being incapable, is possibly one of the sanest and most capable people I have ever met. She communicates differently, but she communicates clearly. She loves her husband and he loves her, and together they have built something beautiful. Miriam began to cry. Tomas pulled her close. Dr. Mendez closed his notebook. My report to the judge will be clear. There is absolutely nothing here that warrants any intervention. This is a legitimate, moral, and loving home. Case closed. Applause erupted. Old man Justin shouted with joy. Lucas hugged his wife, who had come to watch. Mrs. Beatrice, who was there as a medical precaution, wiped away tears. Dr. Mendez extended his hand to Tomas. It was an honor to meet you. Tomas shook his hand. Thank you. For being fair. When the carriage pulled away, Miriam collapsed into the rocking chair, exhausted. Tomas knelt in front of her, holding her hands. It's over. It's truly over. She nodded, smiling through her tears, and whispered, free, finally. And that afternoon, under a sky clearing after a storm, Restful Valley Ranch breathed peace. 3 months later, on a cold June night, Miriam went into labor. The pain began at dusk. Deep waves she felt coursing through her entire body. She didn't need to scream. She just held her belly and looked at Tomas. He understood immediately. I'll get Mrs. Beatrice. She held his arm, her eyes pleading, don't be long. He rode like never before, cutting across the dirt road under the faint moonlight. He pounded on Mrs. Beatrice's door in desperation. It's time! Mrs. Beatrice grabbed her midwife bag, ready for weeks, and climbed onto the back of his horse. They returned in record time. Inside the house, Miriam lay in bed, breathing heavily. The contractions were coming closer and closer. Mrs. Beatrice took charge, giving firm orders. Hot water, clean cloths, and you, Tomas, stay here holding her hand. Tomas obeyed. He sat beside Miriam, holding her hand between his, letting her squeeze with all her might. He spoke softly, steadily. You can do this. You are strong. I'm here. She read his lips between waves of pain and clung to his words like an anchor. Labor lasted for hours. The night wore on. Tomas didn't let go of her hand for a second, and when finally, at the height of the night, the sharp cry of a baby filled the house, Tomas broke down in sobs. It's a girl, announced Mrs. Beatrice, wrapping the child in soft cloths and placing her in Miriam's arms. Miriam looked at her daughter's red, wrinkled little face, eyes closed, mouth open, crying with all the strength of her lungs, and she felt it. Even without hearing the cry, she felt its vibration in her own chest, her whole body. It was like music. Tomas leaned in, looking at his daughter with reverent awe. She's perfect. Miriam nodded, tears falling onto the blanket wrapped around the baby. And then she whispered, Clara. Tomas looked up, surprised. Clara? She nodded, in tribute, because Clara, Tomas's first wife, deserved to be remembered. Because love doesn't exclude. It adds. Tomas kissed Miriam's forehead, unable to speak, his heart too big to fit in his chest. Little Clara grew up surrounded by love and 2 languages, spoken and signed. By 6 months, she was already making simple gestures. By 2 years old, she was communicating fluently in both ways, serving as a bridge between her mother and the world. The farm prospered. The garden produced year-round. The animals were healthy. And the house, that house that had been empty and silent, was now full of life, of silent and spoken laughter, of a child's running feet, of food on the stove and clothes on the line. Miriam became a reference. Families came from far away to ask for advice. Parents of deaf children came to learn. She taught with infinite patience, showing that silence was not a limitation. It was simply a different way of being in the world. The village, which had once condemned her, now respected her. Mrs. Mora became a close friend. Father Angelo asked her for advice on how to better welcome different parishioners, and even Alcides Borges, passing by the farm years later, averted his gaze, ashamed. One afternoon, 5 years after their wedding, Tomas was mending the fence when he saw Miriam and Clara playing in the orchard. Clara, already 4 years old, ran between the trees, and Miriam followed her, laughing. A soundless laugh, but visible in every line of her face. Old man Justin approached, quite old now, but still strong. "Boss, you built something beautiful here." Tomas smiled. "It wasn't just me, it was her. It was both of you. That's what makes a real home." That night, after putting Clara to bed, Tomas and Miriam sat on the porch, as they did every night. The sky was clear, full of stars. Miriam rested her head on his shoulder. Tomas put his arm around her. "Happy?" he asked, as he always did. She nodded. And then, with a voice she now used more freely, she replied, "Very, this is home." Tomas smiled. "Yes, home." And there, under the vast open sky of the countryside, an unlikely family, built not by blood, but by love and choice, found what everyone seeks: belonging, peace, and the certainty that they are loved. Because the true miracle hadn't been Miriam finding her voice again. It was her teaching an entire world to listen with the soul. It was showing that love doesn't need words, just a heart willing to see, to feel, and to stay. Years later, when Clara grew up and had her own children, she would tell the story of her grandmother, the woman who arrived as a burden and left behind a legacy of compassion and understanding. And the blue blanket, the one Miriam had sewn that first stormy night, passed from generation to generation, a symbol that even in the deepest silence, love finds its way. Because in the end, they all discovered, it's not words that connect us, it's the courage to hear what the heart whispers. And Miriam and Tomas heard, and they built a home where everyone, speakers or silent, listeners or deaf, was welcome. A home where silence taught and love healed. If this story touched you, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to receive new stories every day. What would you do in their place? Comment and share with someone special.